Hi, and welcome to Rebel Culture. I'm Art Perry, also known as Professor Art, and today we're moving into part four of our look at Burned and Banned, the attempt to censor, to erase, to rewrite culture and history. So this time around, we'll be looking specifically at the Smithsonian's African American Museum of Culture. And after that, discussing that and the magnitude and splendor of that museum, which is outstanding, I'll be looking at two separate creative activists, people who were caught up in a system that treated them terribly and part of the racist attitudes that still persist. But these two people, both performers, one being Billie Holiday, the other being Eartha Kitt, and I want to talk about them and why they are not only important but relevant to the discussion of what's happening today. So, buckle in, and away we go. Let's zero in now to the mother lode of what I'm talking about here, right? Which is the National Museum of African American History and Culture at the Smithsonian, which is being decimated and obliterated by lack of funding and firings of people and so forth in this current term of Trump's presidency. Now here's an image. This is just to show you this museum is an absolutely important architectural building. This is from the Zine magazine, where in 2018 they gave the architect David Adage African History Museum crowned Design of the Year 2017, right? And, you know, people who know, like the curators and the people who are being fired and being forced to resign, people who understand design, know the wealth and the importance of these things. And it reminds me of, I remember when I was traveling through Egypt, and a lot of the beautiful carvings, right, which had the different, you know, gods like Horus, the bird form, and so forth, and all of these were, a lot of them anyway, were chiseled out. They saw them as, anti-Christian, get rid of those. So these beautiful works of art were decimated. It takes a lot to be educated. It takes a lot to learn about things. That's why there are experts, right? That's why there are people who you rely on for the understanding of history. But that's not what's happening now, and that's what autocratic systems do. They it's not about knowledgeable people. It's about people that will champion what you want, right? And this is not what I thought. The world that I lived in, the Western world in North America, was ever going to be like. That's why I'm kind of screaming here. Let's look just for a second what is in this museum that is being pinpointed for destruction and non-funding. And within that museum is a celebration of African American Black culture in America. So you have things like, here's the sign. This is from the jazz club in Harlem. This is the birthplace of bebop jazz. This is where Charlie Parker played. This is where Dizzy Gillespie played, Thelonious Monk. They had Monday night jam sessions. This is the sign from that. The museum also has the John Coltrane's very, very important Selmer saxophone, right? That comes from France, the Selmer sax. And he played this. He played this instrument, this beautiful saxophone on A Love Supreme. Right? A Love Supreme, which is, I would say, one of the great moments of American music, right? Of world music. What else does this amazing museum of African American culture have? Well, it has Jimi Hendrix's Afghan vest, right, from the 60s. And at this time, I remember very well, Afghan fashion was what was the alternative choice, right? I think I still have it in my storage locker. I should check it. But I bought an Afghan coat. It was, I believe it was yak fur, and it was all embroidered and so forth. But there was a lot of embroidery. It was so, you know, outside of the gray flannel suit of the generation before. You know, the all these fabrics that came from India, from Nepal, and Jimi Hendrix wore this embroidered Afghan vest. Now, here's an image of a recording of Hendrix performing in Ottawa in March 1968. I went to this. This is actually a bootleg recording of a show that I attended, and I've tried to find half decent photos from this show at the Capitol Theater, and I haven't been able to find ones that give me a good view of his vest. He was wearing a vest, I know that, but in any event, I'm just wondering if it was this exact same vest that's now in the Smithsonian. Just a little bit of personal history, you know, the mystery of personal history. What else does the museum have? I'm doing this to show you how outstanding this place is. They have James Brown's jumpsuit. This one where he had the word sex embroidered across the front. Now, pretty provocative, it was a bit too provocative for Dick Clark and ABC television. So when he performed there, here's the image, in 1972, he had to put duct tape over the word sex. Talk about censoring, right? Dick Clark censoring James Brown and the word sex. This is the costume that was used by Diana Ross when she was in the film The Lady Sings the Blues in 1972, dealing with the unparalleled singer and songwriter Billie Holiday. Here's another very quick image of Diana Ross wearing it in that film about the life of Billie Holiday. The Smithsonian also has the master recordings, the first recordings, uh, you know, done by many people, but here's the one of Billie Holiday. I like to bring up something personal, right? Personal history. That's how it began. Well, let's bring in one more thread of that, dealing with the Smithsonian. Here is an image from the Smithsonian's website, and it shows the works that they have of mine there, my Tibetan photos. They have 30 of my Tibetan photos in the collection of the Smithsonian. And so I personally feel this assault on the Smithsonian because, I know the importance of the images and why the Smithsonian has them, right? I was able to travel and photograph within the nomadic communities in Tibet and in Ladakh as well that no one had been able to record before, and I had to go through the office of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. In any event, I feel very, very privileged to have my works in the collection of the Smithsonian, and I'm wondering if because they are Tibetans, how are they going to be, viewed in this new kind of purging? Are they going to be seen as too DEI, un-American? I have no idea. I know their value. The curators that chose them know their value, but we're living in a very wonky-donkey time. It's a time where what seems logical, which seems historically correct, is being rewritten. The history is being rewritten. So here's the cover of my my book, The Tibetans, and I gave lectures both at the Tibet House in New York and at the Smithsonian. When the book was published, I went to the Smithsonian and gave lectures there in Washington. Let's keep this thread going. Okay, Art, let's do this. Here's a book that came out on Billie Holiday in 2017, and it's called Billie Holiday at Sugar Hill. Sugar Hill is a club in New Jersey where she performed. These are amazing photos by Jerry Danzik. And there's a great introduction, which I've mentioned here. Zadie Smith, the writer, who you may know from her novel from 2000 called White Teeth. I think it was her debut novel. Very, very. Now she's a professor of creative writing at New York University. She's been there for the last 15 years or so. In any event, she wrote the introduction to this book. Zadie Smith said, "Billie Holiday was always played in my house. Both my parents loved her, and she was a writer. When I found out she co-wrote God Save the Child and had championed Strange Fruit, that consolidated her importance for me." Right? Now, the editor of this book, this Billie Holiday at Sugar Hill, was a man called Christopher Sweet. Now, Christopher Sweet was the editor of my Tibetan book. And see how things just sort of weave in and around. And this photo is of Christopher at one of my favorite, if not my favorite, bar in New York called the Ear. And it's called the Ear because it's been around, 100 years. The sign did say bar, but the neon sort of burnt out, so it now just says Ear. The Ear Inn is very famous. If you get to just a little sideline here, sideline side. It's a side note. If you go to Spring Street and go to the Ear Inn, it's a great classic bar, and I believe it's been around since like 1770 or so, and it's been a bar there since early in the 1800s. Anyway, I just thought I'd toss that out. A little bit of travel info there. Getting back to Billie Holiday specifically, her story is tragic, but it also deals with this sort of myopic view of culture, right, and not being able to understand either the artistic worth or the importance of things, and just painting it over with a kind of uncouth stupidity. Just again, it gets back to there are people who spend their whole lives studying, thinking, creating, and they get dismissed. They get decimated. People who are in a public eye, like Billie Holiday was, they carry a weight and influence because of their notoriety. And if they make statements, people listen. A certain amount of the population admire them, right? Therefore, they have a kind of power that politicians don't like if they are being critical and so forth. So that someone like Billie Holiday, who was a fragile person, she dealt with her addictions, her life story is phenomenally tragic, that she's an easy target, right? And she did stand up. She refused to bow to the pressures put on her to not sing songs like Strange Fruit, and eventually the system crushed her. Here's a photo by another photographer, Lucette Model, who was the teacher of Deanne Arbus, the great street photographer who I've talked about before. And, Billie Holiday had an incredibly traumatic life. I mean, she was raped at the age of 10. She then worked with her mother in a brothel, as a young woman. And many people feel, whether it's true or not, that her own personal history, being as difficult as it was, gave her this voice of the blues, gave her the sense of depth to her singing when she sang the blues. It wasn't faux. You felt that she was feeling it, and that could very well be true, right? So I wanted to tell you about the story of Strange Fruit, this song which was written. It was a poem which related to a hanging, a lynching of two young African American men. who were murdered and was called a spectacle lynching, which meant it was public and you actually could get tickets and go to these horrific events. And this was back in the summer of 1930. Strange Fruit is a song that chills you to the bone still. I don't think there's a song that matches it for its horrific reality, that brutality of fact that it has. And that's too much for people who don't want to face the reality of things, right? And so here are the words to the song, and they are as chilling today as when they were written. The southern trees bear a strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Pastoral scene of the gallant South, the bulging eyes, the twisted mouth, scent of magnolias, sweet and fresh, then the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here is a fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rot, for the tree to drop. Here is a strange and bitter crop. Now, this song has been called Declaration of War, the beginning of the Civil Rights Movement. Billie Holiday believed that in this song so much, right? She sang it thinking of her father. Her father was admitted to not admitted, went to a hospital, all-white hospital, and was not allowed in at the age of 39 because he was black, and he died, right? And she said that she always wanted to sing the song to tell people about the reality of being a black person in America. And of course, that put her up against the system, and especially the white system of persecution, right, of the blacks, racism and segregation and so forth. So here's a quote relating to her father and the song Strange Fruit. This is Billie Holiday. She says, strange fruit reminds me of how Pop died, but I have to keep singing it, not only because people ask for it, but because 20 years after Pop died, the things that killed him are still happening in the South. So when she sang this song, she was aware of its power. I mean, who wouldn't be? But she made sure that it was the last song she would sing in an evening when she was performing. She made sure that if it was often she performed in nightclubs and so forth, that the servers could not serve during the song. The lights were turned down except for a spot on her, and she sang this song. It unbelievably chilling to the bone to hear this song, and then she had no encore. That was it. Here's an image of the actual crowd. that was used as a impetus to write the song. It's just so horrific. But here's the crowd, and these are people who, as I said, it was a lynching where it was an event, right? And you would go and you'd look at these people, and this was a crowd at this spectacle lynching, it was called, of J. Thomas Shipp and Abraham S. Smith in Marion, Indiana. You can just feel this kind of racial glee and murder as entertainment that oozes from these faces. Now, who are these people? What kind of people are like this, right? Well, sometimes people with that sense of non-empathy or twisted reality get in positions of power. And one of those people was someone who became the bane of Billie Holiday's existence. And that was a man called Harry Anslinger. And he was the first commissioner of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. That's who he was. So he was dealing with drugs. And he said, quote, "Reefer makes darkies think they are as good as white men. The primary reason to outlaw marijuana is its effect on the degenerate races." I mean, put that with the words, the lyrics from Strange Fruit. Now, what I'm talking about now is an aberrant history in America that is trying to be erased, right? It's something you learn about in, Black history classes, in museum exhibitions like the Smithsonian, but it ain't that pretty at all. So right at this moment in time, instead of the inclusion of this, an understanding of this, it's being just like what Harry Anslinger did. Because what Harry did, oh God, it's so broad. I'll just do a cursory. He believed that all jazz musicians were degenerates, that they were all druggies, that they should be locked up. And he said that the jazz was, he used this term, satanic music. Right? So he painted it with this incredible brush. Billie Holiday was told to stop singing Strange Fruit. It was too true. And of course she said no, she wouldn't. And so Anslinger and his people framed her and paid someone to plant some drugs on her. This is the truth of it. And she spent 18 months in prison. When she came out, her license to sing, cabaret license, was was stopped. She couldn't sing, and her life tumbled into darkest zone you can imagine. And eventually, she got back onto heroin. She went into a hospital for treatment, methadone, and so forth. Anslinger got his people in there. They refused her to get treatment. They had her literally handcuffed to her bed, and she died. she died in hospital because of his, well, just so that is an awful story, but I think it's one that should be told, and it just shows the levels of barbarism that can exist in America, right? And I thought that we got so far above that, but I'm beginning to see that um, tain't so. This is all very dark, and I knew it would be. And there needs to be at least, it's like that image of hanging that allowed for the writing of Strange Fruit. Uh, these things have to be confronted, right? The atrocities cannot continue. What the hell? Are you serious? Is this, have a sense of uh, absolute, just being credulous about it and say, no, no, this is wrong. And there's not enough people who have the the position of opposition that are affecting, to change things, to make the balance where it should be. And that's what I find so frightening. Anyway, here's a final image, again by Lisette Mardell, which is of Billie Holiday in her casket in 1959 after she died. I want to mention one other very, very strong and ethical person who, like Billie Holiday, was persecuted because of that, and that is Eartha Kitt. Eartha Kitt, first thing I remember about her was singing this song called Evil on television. And she did this song. Oh, she was just like no other performer. And she did this song about being bad, about being an outlaw, an outsider, and someone who doesn't play by the rules but breaks them. I mean, just a magnetic performer. And she got the role as Catwoman on the TV series Batman from in the mid 60s, 67, 68. And she became one of the first black female stars on TV, without question. And her story, like Billie Holiday, she began on a cotton plantation, and she was conceived as a result of rape, and they believe that no one knows for sure who the father was, but it was surmised that it was the son of the plantation owner, and her mother couldn't raise her, so she was sent to an aunt. Eartha Kitt was sent to an aunt in Harlem who was abusive, and Eartha Kitt began as performing very young, and it was a way of singing and dancing and finding herself. And she eventually got this very public role as Catwoman, and she was invited to the White House. It was for a gathering of people about youth of the day, right? Sort of a very, and she went there, And here's an image of her with President Johnson's wife, Lady Bird Johnson. And the caption I put on this was, in 1968, when Eartha Kitt was invited to the White House, she asked the president's wife, Lady Bird Johnson, about the 68,000 Americans killed that year in the Vietnam War. Right? 68,000 during the Vietnam War, young men and women were killed. She took the podium and spoke to everyone there. She immediately was stopped. She was supposed to get a ride home in a limo that was canceled. She was just, and here's another image, and this is a quote from Eartha Kitt. You sent the best of this country off to be shot and maimed. They rebel in the streets. They will take pot and they will get high. They don't want to go to school because they're going to be snatched from their mothers to be shot in Vietnam. A very, very strong anti-war voice, Eartha Kitt, who had a very public position as, Catwoman. The result, she was blacklisted instantly, right? No limo and no, she was blacklisted from 68 to 1974. She could not perform in America. She had to perform in Europe. And the CIA referred to her as a sadistic nymphomaniac. Seriously. So, like Billie Holiday, she tried to speak out, against what should be spoken out against, and she was totally, punished. Here's a quote by Eartha Kitt. She went on record by saying, I was rejected artistically, emotionally, and personally. I remember thinking, my own mother had given me away, and now my country didn't want me either. The brutality of fact. Okay, that'll be it for today. There was a lot covered, and some of it was very disturbing and dark, but so important to look at and to put in the perspective of its relevance for today. So I will continue. There will be a part 5 of Burned and Banned, the erasing and destruction of culture in America. At this moment, it's just something which has to be looked at and understood for its magnitude, what it means. It's not just about democracy, it's about civilization. It's a deep, deep, disturbing moment, and I'm not trying to make it, more tabloid or sensationalistic than what it is. It is very, very damaging and damning. So this will continue, as I say. There'll be a part 5. I think it'll be the last section on this, but I'm not really sure. It's kind of organic. So, as I always say, keep the quest alive. And until next time, ciao for now.